Well, it's another one of those weeks where we go into some really heavy duty astrology. And before we get started, I want to tell you a story because I want to try to help you understand what Saturn ingressing back into Pisces might feel like. When I was a teenager, we went on a family trip to Hawaii and we were camping. So we were out on a very isolated coast and the ocean was big. The waves were big. Now, my family had been going camping in this area in the Kalalau Valley for years. And both my sister and I were very strong swimmers. Shout out to my mom because she made sure that we had swimming lessons when we were growing up. And so we were very comfortable in the water. And we spent a lot of time navigating that particular stretch of ocean and those huge waves. Well, one time in high school, I brought a girlfriend with me to Hawaii. We decided one day that we were going to swim from one cove to the other. Now, in the middle of each cove was the wide open ocean. And as we were swimming, I realized that she was not doing well. She was not a very strong swimmer. And so, what started off as an adventure, as something very fun, we were going to go from point A to point B and check out and see what was on the next part of the island, turned into kind of a nightmare because I realized that she was going to go down. And so here I was only like 17 at the time, but I knew somehow I was guided to help her get back to the original shore. And she was swimming, so it wasn't that I was physically helping her to swim, but I was alongside of her, talking her through this, getting her through this really scary experience. Every time a wave hit her in the face and she would gasp for air and choke on water, I would say, "It's okay. It's okay. You're almost there. You got this." Somehow, miraculously, we both made it back to the shore, and then we just laid there for a while on the ground, just being so grateful and thankful that we made it through. So today we're starting off the week with Saturn, which is the planet of authority. It's a planet that makes us work really hard, and it has been in Aries for the last few months. Saturn in Aries is about working hard on getting things done. It's about having the idea and the inspiration and moving forward with it in ways that guarantee success. So what we've seen over the last few months is this sense of like, wow, I'm actually moving, like I'm cooking with gas, as we say. Now, Saturn has been in retrograde for a few weeks and it is moving back into Pisces, which is about the spiritual lessons. So this is a really hard transition between the spiritual and the action. And so I bring up this story about swimming in the ocean in Hawaii because it started off as something that was very action oriented. It was going to be fun. It was an adventure. It was something to do. And then very quickly, it turned into an absolute spiritual process where somehow, somewhere at 17 years old, I knew I had to transmit the instructions to my girlfriend who was about to drown and calm her enough so that she could swim through really rough, deep waters back to shore. Now, hopefully, there's nothing as dire as this happening in your own life. But as I was thinking about how we connect in those moments where the rubber meets the road and we know that we have to do something and it isn't necessarily coming from us. So we're going to talk about that. I'm not the Perkins of Astrology. This is my weekly forecast, The Path Ahead, where I go through the astrology of everything that's happening this week. I'm giving it to you through the lens of psychology, spirituality, and astrology, because you will hear things that resonate really specifically for you in your life. And it's more than just what the planets are doing, and it's more than just what you're experiencing in your own felt sense. There are so many different timelines and spiritual missions and deeper understandings that are coming to us right now, and I'm going to help you translate it. So if you like my style and you want to work with me privately, you can find me at electraastrology.com. And let's jump into the charts for the week. Like I said, it's another wild ride. All right. By about 2:45 a.m. Colorado time, I'm in Mountain Time, we watch Saturn ingress back into the sign of Pisces. We have just gone through about 3 years worth of Saturn in Pisces. Saturn entered Pisces in March of 2023. Pisces is not the easiest sign for Saturn to be in because it is all about the spiritual lessons. It's about the trust that is required for success. We're not so good with trust. We would rather have very specific guidelines. So, what I've noticed working with so many of you guys and also in my own life with Saturn and Pisces is that success hasn't been guaranteed. All of these routes that we always try to take for success, like I'm going to have the conversation, I'm going to run the advertising, I'm going to do something that has always worked for me in the past, I'm going to follow the logical steps. Those things just aren't as supported and they aren't working as well. And what we end up being required to do is trusting. We're going with the flow. And a lot of times, going with the flow isn't on our timeline. And so we end up feeling frustrated like, well, where's the money? Where's the relationship? How come I can't solve this problem? How come I can't make this work? But Saturn always teaches us how to grow up and how to take whatever resources are available and make them work. So, back to my friend who was on the verge of drowning, I still believe to this day that I was pulling in resources from probably my higher power, walking me through how to get her to shore. Now, I wasn't using logic. I wasn't going back to some framework that I had developed in the past. I was only 17. She also didn't have the wherewithal to logically think out how to get from the wide open ocean back to shore without drowning. So, with Saturn in Pisces, the lesson since March of 2023, so think back into your own life of all of the different places where you have had to throw everything that you knew to the wind and rely instead on the insight that comes through, on the guidance that's coming from who knows where, on the trust that you will be taken care of and you will eventually find the answer. So, even though we've had a bit of a break through this summer and we've found a little action, it's like, oh, good, things are working again because Aries is an energy about moving forward and taking action. Now that Saturn is back in Pisces for the next few months, this is about suspending action and going back into everything that you've learned since 2023 and going, that's right, this is a spiritual lesson. This is a practice. I have to go back to trusting that the right answer will arrive and not on my timeline. Okay, and if you think about it, what is usually the tool that we use to guide us forward, to answer questions, make connections, follow rules? Well, it's the mind. And so we look at Mercury. Mercury is the planet that rules the mind. Well, what's Mercury doing and how supportive is our mind going to be of us relaxing some of our control and allowing whatever's supposed to come and whatever's supposed to leave? Well, on September 2nd, we watch as Mercury comes into this quincunx with Saturn. Quincunx causes anxiety. So the answer is your mind is not going to want to cooperate with going back into the temple to continue learning the spiritual lesson. Your mind is going to want to keep charging forward, answering the questions and crossing things off the list. So we're going to have to use some mind control this week. By Wednesday, we watch Mercury making a square over here to Uranus, a quincunx to Pluto, and still in the quincunx to Saturn and Neptune. Over the last few weeks, we have watched the Sun, the Moon, Venus, and Mars all hit these outer planets. And now we're watching Mercury do it. So Mercury is the mind. It's how you process information. These are all uncomfortable aspects. There's not a bit of harmony here. So just know that it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to have that feeling like you've been at the beach and you're riding home and you've got sand in your bathing suit and your skin is sunburned and you have dried salt water that's making your sunburn worse. Remember that feeling? It's like, oh, I just want to get home. I just want to shower. I just need to get out of the sun. And that's how it's going to feel. So then you look at it like, what can I do to support myself? Because this isn't just us being uncomfortable for the sake of being uncomfortable. There are bigger implications here. We're being pushed through the tunnel to get to something better. So back to my example about being in Hawaii and being in this situation with my girlfriend. We're 17. Our whole life revolves around boys and partying and having fun. Well, life got really real for a few minutes. And I think that both of us left that situation a little older, a little wiser, and a little more mature. But that was a good thing because by the time we were 18 and we graduated from high school, we packed up our car and we drove 7 states away to go live on our own. I think that that trip was a big growth point for both of us. It wasn't just about having fun and being carefree anymore. It was a bit of a wake up call of like, oh, the world can be a really hard place. And we need to be on our game. We need to be paying attention so that when we hit these hard places, we can get through them. And then I think about everything that we went through when we first moved to that city. We were two young girls alone. It was in the 90s, so we didn't have internet. We didn't have a lot of guidance. We were kind of figuring all of this out. And we did have some really scary situations that we encountered, but we both had this fortitude of like, we're going to get through it. We're going to do it. And we did. So we're looking at this particular point in time, and this is eclipse season. We do have our first eclipse this week. We're looking at this as if every single thing that comes across our desk is a chance to practice our skill set, strengthen what we already know, learn what we do not, so that we have the fortitude to move into what's next, because we know we don't want to stay the same. We look around the world, there are too many problems. Everybody says, this is bad, and this is bad, and this doesn't work. And that's great. But we have to be the change that we wish to see. And that will involve all of us coming to know ourselves on a deeper level, becoming much more self-aware, becoming more spiritually aware as well. What are your practices? How do you quiet the mind so that you can tune in and allow that guidance to show up? And that's what we're working with the mind this week. So the mind is going to be pushed through a lot of stress, mental gymnastics. How am I supposed to make this work? These outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus, are all the planets that we say are the closest to the divine. So they do bring us divine intelligence. And that divine intelligence ultimately is what we want to be using to move forward. When we're using our human intelligence, it's really limited. It's like, oh, I read this thing in this history book, or, oh, I searched this thing out online. I'm using the intelligence generated by other humans to inform me. And you know what? Sometimes that works, but that's not the whole picture. And in fact, divine intelligence usually guides us to better places that help us accomplish more of our soul mission. We have all of our little Virgo human missions, and let's talk about that because Mercury has moved into Virgo. We do have the sun in Virgo and the south node in Virgo, and all of these eclipses are Virgo energy. And both of our eclipses, including our new moon, which wasn't an eclipse, but it led us into eclipse season, are all taking place in the sign of Virgo and Pisces. And Virgo is the human to-do list. It's all of the things that we think are really important. So I talk to a lot of you. And of course, I'm a very Virgo human myself, and we've got all the tasks and the chores and the things that have to happen. And they do exist largely in our mind. We're the ones that set the standards that say, I'm supposed to walk 7,000 steps a day. I'm supposed to drink 70 ounces of water a day. I'm the one that has to run to the store and do the 3 errands. I have to sign up for the PTA, like whatever our Virgo self is saying, you've got to do. It's all man-made tasks, man-made accomplishments, man-made approval. And you know what? We live in the land of humans, so that makes sense, and we need that. By the way, I am talking about Virgo all month on Astrology for Awakening, which is my other show under that playlist on YouTube, as well as Star Narratives, the podcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that you see it again. I know when I'm flipping through social media and I find somebody that I like, if I don't immediately like or save a post or something like that, I will lose track. So this way you don't lose track. But there's a lot of really good information that I'm releasing that is my gift to you. It's free of charge. So you might as well use it. And this is a really important time in history to be understanding yourself and understanding your own psychology and how it all works. So, back to Virgo, and we're talking about how Virgo is the energy of the man made to do list. Pisces is the energy of the information that's filtering in from your higher self. Now, when we're tuning in with information from our higher self, we do have some work to do. It's not that easy. It's not all just, oh, this feels so good. I'm so tuned in. We have to really confront a lot of the shadow side of Pisces, which can be like, I don't trust and I feel alone and I don't want to see reality, etc. So this is not to say that Pisces is easy. And in fact, the North Node always indicates a fair amount of stress because this is the uphill battle. This is the carrot stick instead of the bar of chocolate. This is the 5-mile run in the heat in order to prepare for the marathon. It's not easy to work with this North Node Pisces. And yet here we are. This is trusting, surrendering, allowing for the flow. Yeah, what happens when you have a bill to pay and you don't have enough money in the bank account? It's easy to say, oh, just trust that it will come in. But actually, that's a lot of work because we want to go into Virgo and say, I need to get a job. I need to do these things to make this cash come in. So it's not that this is easy stuff to do, but how do we do it? We lean into our Pisces tools of meditation, of prayer, of centering ourselves, coming back to the here and the now, because a lot of times what will happen is we're so busy down here in Virgo with the busyness of the mind that we miss the divine guidance that says, hey, maybe you can call that person. Maybe they know of somebody that wants to hire you. Or what if you moved a little money around over here and it would free it up so then you can use that to pay this bill and then you can relax. On the 5th, we look at Mars here in Libra making a square to Jupiter. Mars is about taking action, and Jupiter is about seeing the bigger picture. So, one of the things that we want to watch for as we're talking about all of this Virgo energy is that we feel compelled to take an action of some sort. I have to go find a job. I have to get on the dating app. I've got to do something because I have this tension in my body because I have these mind created problems. And in order to alleviate the tension, I have to take action. But Jupiter in Cancer is all about reminding you that you have to zoom out. You have to get away from your emotional reactions. You need some space so that you can actually see what's really going on. So Jupiter in Cancer shows us where we get really emotionally activated. Like, they didn't call me. Oh my God, I'm going to shoot off a nasty text to them. Or we create a story in our head about what somebody's behavior means, and then that's that. We're going to stay with that story until the day we die. But Jupiter is the teacher that says, hey, get a different perspective. Maybe you need to talk to somebody else and ask how they see the situation. Maybe you just need some space. Maybe you need to get up into the mountains for a day without your cell phone so that you can just be with yourself and get some space from the situation. So this week, as we're in eclipse season, and you guys have heard me say this, eclipse season is not a good season to be making huge changes. Changes will present themselves to you. Things will come and go, and that's great. If the changes come in and they feel like they're an ease and a flow, like the wheels are already greased, oh my God, this is great, perfect. If you feel like you're out there having to push, like I applied for 30 jobs this week and I finally got an offer and it's in Wisconsin. So that means I have to move. Like, slow down. Slow down, take some space. Mars squaring Jupiter says, do not act hastily, even if you are tempted to. Slow down, talk to some friends, get some different points of view, and then make your decision maybe in 4 weeks when eclipse season is over. In as much as you guys can buy yourself time for making decisions, especially if it's like the back and forth of the like, oh my God, I'm tearing my hair out. I don't know if I shouldn't I? Those are decisions that need to be paused. If you're like, yeah, this is great, I'm going to go for it. Great. That's a completely different story. Now, on the 6th, we watch Uranus station to go retrograde. Now, Uranus is in Gemini, teaching us how to think about things differently. The good old brain, the good old mind that wants information to be organized perfectly so that we can move on. It's like everything's filed away in the correct filing cabinet, and now I don't have to worry about it. And Uranus comes into Gemini and like knocks all of that on its head. Because Uranus is like, what if we file that differently? What if we don't even use that filing cabinet? What if the information in the filing cabinet is not accurate? And so think back over the last few months as Uranus has been in Gemini of how many mind benders you've been asked to get into in terms of your own beliefs, in terms of the things that you thought were facts. As Uranus stations to go retrograde, you're going to start going back through what you've already learned. And Uranus still has to go back into Taurus, where we're going to finish up the lessons around the money, the value, the security. So, how interesting that Uranus stations retrograde right after Mercury goes through this whole gauntlet right before our first eclipse. So, let's talk about that. Here's our eclipse chart. The sun and the moon are at 15 degrees of Virgo Pisces. You can look from about 12 to 18 degrees of any of the mutables, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. If you have planets in your own chart that are within those degrees, in those mutable signs, know that this eclipse is for you. This one is here to teach you some things. Now, of course, it's going to be on themes that I've just been talking about. What do you need to let go of? How are you totally identified with being busy, with getting it right, with criticizing others, with criticizing yourself, with getting approval, draining yourself, making your cheeks hurt because you're smiling so hard at people, wanting them to like you? The growth path is here, North Node Pisces. And look, it is with Saturn and Neptune. The growth path is down here into Pisces. And the moon here is about how you feel. And we're tuning in, we're sensing in. We're not getting emotionally reactive. Jupiter's over here playing a part in this as well because Jupiter is in trine here. So there's a distinction between the energy of Cancer, which is I have to take care of everybody. And I get really emotionally triggered, especially with other people. The people that I love, the people that I care for, the people that I attend to and that I do things for. And I expect a certain amount of appreciation and love in return. And when I don't get it, my feelings are hurt. That's Cancer. Pisces is really different because Pisces is much more about tuning into the energy. Just what does it feel like? I don't care who's here that I love. I'm not trying to take care of anybody here. I'm just here going, wow, this is weird. This energy is bizarre. What can I do with it? What can I make of it? So the guidance for this particular eclipse is noticing how you get busy and how it is impacting you negatively. Noticing how you want to get in and tend to people. You want to get in there and meet everybody's needs. You want your emotions to be taken care of. But really, this is about, once again, I got to trust. I got to go with the flow. I'm sitting back and I'm just watching. So imagine you're at a family gathering and you are watching the Virgos in the family scurrying around. They're cooking, they're picking up people's napkins and plates. They're very, very busy. And then there's the mothers in the group that are all over the kids. What are you doing? Where are you going? I'm helping you. And you're down here as the Piscean cool aunt or uncle, and you're just checking out the scene. You don't feel compelled to be up, being busy, cleaning. You're not trying to take care of the kids. You're just sitting back observing. Occasionally, you're like, oh, I'm going to go over here and do this. I'm going to help them. I'm going to have a conversation. But mostly, you're just sensing into the energy and checking out the scene. That's the jam. That's the guidance for this eclipse. It's like the less attached you can be to the plan, the less anxious, the less nail biting, like, I'm messing things up. They're messing things up. I don't like this. I'm anxious. The more of that kind of energy that you're in, the more off track you know you are. So again, Mercury is up here with this eclipse, and Mercury is the mind. And you're going to have to disengage the mind. Disengaging the mind sometimes looks like going and being that monk on the mountain. You're under the tree, you're meditating, you're sitting in the corner of the room, observing. You're taking the temperature. You're not stressing out about where the thermometer is and how high the heat is turned up and whether you need to turn the AC on. You're just over here like, okay, this is what's happening. All right, let's make the best of it. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. We'll be talking more as the weeks progress about this eclipse season, how these things are impacting you. We'll be going deeper into the Virgo Pisces axis on Awakening with Astrology later this weekend. So check that out. I hope you guys have a great week.